Why WWE murdered its best era on purpose. Think about the last time you sat on your couch, completely exhausted from work, flipping through channels late at night, and stumbled across modern pro wrestling. You see the bright neon lights, the perfectly scripted promos, and the pristine, unblemished ring canvas. It feels sterile, doesn't it? Like you're staring at a massive, glittering commercial for action figures rather than an actual fight. If you grew up in the late 90s or early 2000s, you remember the sheer anxiety and electric thrill of the ruthless aggression era. You remember the blood soaking the mat, the unprotected steel chair shots that sounded like a shotgun blast in a crowded arena, and that chaotic unpredictability that made you feel like anything could happen. But that visceral, dangerous energy is completely dead now, replaced by a meticulously sanitized corporate product. Most people think they know exactly why this happened. If you ask the average fan at a local sports bar, they'll tell you WWE just got greedy and wanted to sell more toys to little kids. They think it was a simple, albeit cynical, shift in marketing demographics to make an extra buck. But what if I told you the truth is infinitely darker? What if I told you that the decision to murder the most popular era in television history wasn't about selling action figures, but about preventing the United States government from dismantling a billion-dollar empire? We have to talk about June 2007, a 48-hour window that completely altered the trajectory of live entertainment forever. When the horrific news broke about the Chris Benoit double murder-suicide, WWE made a catastrophic, knee-jerk mistake. They rushed a 3-hour tribute show to air on national television before the local police had actually confirmed what happened inside that house in Georgia. The moment the authorities released the horrifying details, the timeline of the murders, the Bibles placed by the bodies, the text messages, WWE realized they had just broadcast a global memorial for a monster. The media backlash was instantaneous and absolutely merciless. Every news network in the country began running loops of bloody wrestling footage, connecting the tragedy to a culture of untreated concussions, steroid abuse, and corporate negligence. Now listen to me carefully. I'm not a financial advisor or a lawyer. I just read the SEC filings and the congressional subpoenas that are a matter of public record. But when you look at the paper trail from the summer of 2007, you realize that WWE wasn't just facing bad PR. They were facing an existential threat. Congressmen, led by Representative Henry Waxman, immediately demanded internal documents, drug testing records, and wellness policies, threatening to rip the company open on a federal level. Wall Street panicked. The stock began to bleed out, and major television advertisers started eyeing the exit doors. The entire empire was hours away from total collapse, and the only way out was the most ruthless bait-and-switch in corporate history. To understand how they saved themselves, we have to look at the sheer, brutal mechanics of the business before 2007. Imagine a massive, neon-lit buffet in your hometown, but instead of food, it serves human destruction. For decades, the system was built on a very simple transaction. If a performer wanted more money and more TV time, they had to take more physical risks. It was an unregulated gladiator economy. The guys who took the unprotected chair shots to the skull, the ones who bled the most profusely, were the ones who got the main event slots. The entire corporate structure financially incentivized physical trauma because trauma is exactly what spiked the television ratings. This is where we have to talk about human brain chemistry and the dopamine gap. Evolutionary biology dictates that human beings cannot look away from chaos. We are hardwired to fixate on violence, conflict, and danger as a survival mechanism. WWE had essentially hacked the American lizard brain, giving us a weekly, unfiltered hit of adrenaline that no other television show could legally provide. But suddenly, in the summer of 2007, that exact psychological hack became their biggest liability. The blood and the chair shots were no longer seen as edgy entertainment. To the media and to Congress, they were glaring evidence of a toxic, homicidal workplace. The dopamine loop had to be destroyed immediately and permanently. So, how do you fix a public image that is currently associated with a sensationalized murder-suicide? You don't just apologize. You build an impenetrable PR shield made out of family values. WWE didn't just tweak their product. They dragged it kicking and screaming into the PG era. Think of it like taking a Grand Theft Auto game and suddenly forcing the player to be a school crossing guard, all while the developers insist it's an upgrade. They stripped away the blood, they banned the heavy cursing, and they aggressively courted blue-chip, family-friendly sponsors. By partnering with massive, squeaky-clean brands like Mattel, they were fundamentally changing the DNA of their revenue stream. And here is the truly brilliant, almost cynical part of the strategy. They began leaning heavily into philanthropy, Make-A-Wish campaigns, anti-bullying initiatives, and military tributes. They weaponized charity as a corporate mode. Because if you are a congressman trying to subpoena executives, or an investigative journalist trying to write a hit piece, it is incredibly difficult to attack a company that is currently granting its 5,000th wish to a terminally ill child on national television. They essentially used the cultural shield of a superhero franchise to insulate their boardroom from federal prosecution. But who actually executes a pivot of this magnitude? Who has the sheer, cold-blooded audacity to look at a billion-dollar formula that took 30 years to build and wipe it out overnight? You already know the architect of this system, Vince McMahon. McMahon wasn't just a television character who yelled at people in the ring. He was a ruthless corporate survivalist. He recognized that the Chris Benoit tragedy wasn't just a sad story. It was the ultimate stress test of his company's legal liability. He realized that as long as his performers were bleeding and taking concussions for entertainment, his personal wealth and his family's legacy were vulnerable to massive lawsuits. So he instituted the ultimate defensive mode. The WWE wellness policy, which had been loosely enforced before, suddenly became the ironclad law of the land. They officially banned unprotected chair shots to the head, they instituted strict concussion protocols, and they brought in doctors to monitor every single match. But why am I telling you this? Do you think they did this just out of the goodness of their hearts? No. They did it to transfer the liability away from the corporation and onto the individual. If a wrestler gets hurt today, or is found abusing substances, the company can hold up a massive, legally binding handbook and say, look, we have all these rules, they just broke protocol. It is the perfect corporate firewall. The performers were no longer independent renegades. They were heavily regulated intellectual property. Let's anchor this to reality with some actual numbers. In 2013, just a few years into this massive overhaul, WWE executives proudly reported that their revenue had almost tripled since moving to TVPG. That isn't just a bump in the ratings. That is hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate sponsorships that would never have touched them in the ruthless aggression era. By sanitizing the product, they opened the floodgates to global distribution deals, streaming network rights, and international stadium shows. They went from being a gritty, touring carnival act to a bulletproof, global content farm. They produce thousands of hours of original programming every single year. That means while you are sleeping, eating, or sitting at your desk, this massive machine is churning out 6 to 7 hours of highly sterilized, perfectly safe corporate IP every single day. The sheer scale of the operation is terrifying. When you break this down, you're going to realize how trapped we all are as consumers in this perfectly designed ecosystem. Let's trace the exact path of a modern fan interacting with this closed loop today. You come home from a long day, completely exhausted, and you turn on Monday Night Raw. You watch 3 hours of perfectly choreographed, heavily branded entertainment. There are no surprises, no sudden moments of terror, and absolutely no blood. It feels safe, predictable, and almost comforting in its sterility. Then, you open your phone and scroll through social media, where the company's algorithm feeds you highly polished clips of their superstars doing charity work or attending red carpet premieres. You take your kid to the store on the weekend, and you buy them a pristine Mattel action figure that represents a character who has never said a curse word on television. Every single interaction you have with the product has been scrubbed clean of the human chaos that originally built the empire. You are actively funding the PR shield that keeps the executives out of congressional courtrooms. Remember that quiet, almost hollow feeling I mentioned at the very beginning? That creeping boredom you feel when you watch the modern product, wondering why it doesn't grip your soul the way it used to? That isn't a failure of the television show. That sterile feeling is the exact sensation of a risk mitigation algorithm working perfectly. You are feeling the absolute absence of liability. You are feeling the weight of $1 billion legal firewall pressing down on a wrestling ring. The Chris Benoit tragedy didn't just end lives. It ended the illusion that this was a wild, unpredictable sport. It forced Wall Street to step into the ring and dictate exactly how much humanity we are allowed to consume on a Monday night. And the darkest part of all this? You keep tuning in, hoping to feel that old rush of adrenaline, completely unaware that the system was fundamentally reprogrammed to ensure you never feel it again. You aren't a fan anymore. You're simply the final, necessary data point in the safest business model ever constructed.